And we're back. And this is part 2 of the video that we did a couple of days ago about the Jean-Clement Yaohirou audio recording, which was made on the 4th of September 2014 at the home of Abraham's brother-in-law, Jean-Clement. We talked the last time about some of the early parts of the audio tape in which, for example, we hear Abraham not just coaching, but pushing the children into saying certain things, how many, drilling them on how many skulls each participant in the alleged satanic cult were using, that sort of thing. And we talked a little bit about other things on the video as well, including parts of the video where it was clear that Abraham was convinced that Jean-Clement was actually going to make the arrests necessary that he thought were necessary in this case. Clearly showing that he had a at the very least, unrealistic view of how police things operate, because special constables generally don't run cases themselves. That's just not a thing. It doesn't happen. It would be like asking a crossing guard to do a murder investigation. It just makes no sense. At the end of the last video on this topic, we talked about Abraham saying, in a very strange way, because this is not what we would have expected him to say, but Abraham telling Jean-Clement that the tattoos were completely meaningless as evidence, that the people in the school or in and around the school and in the alleged cult could have obtained them in any way, that the children could have seen them in various different contexts or even just heard about them, and therefore that they had no evidential value. That is surprisingly insightful given some of the other things that he says in the video, and yet it also completely contradicts what he'll come to say later, which is that the tattoos are of utmost importance and that in fact they completely prove the case and show that it must have been real. So this is something that I think people who look into this case have to sort of understand, and that is that for Abraham and Ella, the story was continually evolving. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how that happened. They tell us themselves in part of the Jean-Clement audio recording, and I will read that to you in just a sec here. So the context for this little piece of the audio recording is that Abraham had just, out of the blue, accused the little girl of touching the little boy as soon as they were out of his sight, and he was saying to Jean-Clement, "You have to watch her, she lies all the time, this is how she is." Clearly, he really had a problem with some of the little girl's behavior, and it sounds as though perhaps she stood up to him a little bit more. We've mentioned this before, and I think it seems to be a major part of this sort of dialogue here. He does focus on, the first thing he says when he comes in is, do we have room for her in the jail cells if she lies? And by lying, what Abraham means is telling the truth. In other words, she refuses to be bullied into saying certain things, and this, according to him, means that she's lying. Now that's a pretty warped way to deal with a child, as any parent will tell you, any non-parent will tell you, anyone will tell you. It's common sense. He's a very, very abusive person. There's just no two ways about that, I'm afraid. Okay, so basically in the context of that conversation, Abraham starts talking about how he and Ella put things together. And here I'm just going to read to you from the transcript. He said, "Ella and I will begin to discuss certain aspects of the situation." And Jean-Clement says, "Okay." And by discussing it, we brainstorm, and together we come up, or we work things out. So notice that he says, we work things out. He doesn't say, they tell us what happened or they confess to us what happened. He says we work things out, and then we decide, and then they talk to the children. So basically they are deciding what happened, and they're saying it right in the video. It's right there for everyone to hear and see. And apparently no one cared to do that when they were people were pushing this hoax. Either they didn't listen to the video, or they just chose to overlook that part. That's called cherry picking, and it's pretty common, unfortunately. The next little part is kind of disturbing. I'm just going to read it as is so you can hear for yourselves exactly how this went down. Basically, it's right after the part where Abraham says that he's going to that he and Ella decided what happened before telling the children what had happened and then forcing them to agree with it. So just out of the blue, Abraham says, "What are you looking at him for? What was that look that you just did to him? What was that look she just did to you?" And the little boy says, "It's a sign to me." And the Abraham says, "What was the sign?" "The I one." "That means I'm ready to." And Abraham says, "You're ready to touch? Excuse me." And Jean-Clement goes, "Yeah." And Abraham says, pay close attention, because you think you know, but you don't. Once you're talking and once we are distracted explaining to you, because you don't know them. And Jean-Clement goes, And Abraham says, once we were distracted, how can I say, once we're distracted explaining to you the situation, the enormousness of the situation and how expertly they're able to distract, once we are doing this, she knows and she makes an eye sign to him that I am ready to touch, because they regularly touch, because the father questions them as to whether or not they have touched each other. And Ella says, and if they haven't, he would hurt them. Abraham says, punish them. And so it's really unbelievably sick. Really, there's just no other way to describe it. It's just sick. Abraham insists that these children have been, that they have actually, in their sight, have just looked at each other, and he decides that this is a signal, the eye signal. It's crazy, and it's so just disturbing to listen to. I think the thing I find the most disturbing about listening to that is exactly how controlling it is. Can you imagine sitting at a table and your brother is near you, your sister is near you, and you exchange glances as the adults are speaking, and all of a sudden you're being accused of doing something nefarious, of suddenly engaging in sexual behavior, even though you might just be saying, thinking to yourself, pass the salt, please. It's incredibly controlling. It means that the children must have realized that their every glimpse, every bat of the eyelash would have been, scrutinized by Abraham and turned into something foul and disgusting and regulated. And that's no way for children to live. These children, if you want to talk about mind control, we're getting into the whole mind control thing again, along with the beating and the pulling out of bed in the middle of the night for questioning, and the pouring water over them, and the burning them, and the kicking them, and the pushing them into the walls, and the hitting them on the head with spoons, and cuffing them on the ears until their ears bleed and their eardrums rupture. This is all what happened to those children in the month that they were in Morocco with this crazed child abuser and their mother who appeared not to give a shit about their welfare. That is the bottom line here. In the next part of the video, it's the one that is most often replayed because it is chilling to listen to. We'll listen to, or I'm going to read to you actually, you won't have to listen to it, but I'll read to you exactly what they said. First of all, it starts with Abraham and Ella essentially reversing exactly what happened, and saying that the father was responsible for things which they themselves had done. So Abraham says, he takes sadistic pleasure in hurting you. Ella says, also he would scream into the boy, and Abraham says, he screams into his ear, he's deaf in one ear. He screams into their ear. Well, we know that he was not deafened from the father screaming into his ear. He's deafened from the fact that Abraham hit him on the head. And we know this because he told both the police and the doctor who examined him, and the doctor, who the people who believe this hoax are extremely fond of quoting the doctor when it suits them, not so much when it doesn't, and this is one of those places where they don't like to quote the doctor too much. So then Abraham says, "What happens? Who screams into your ear?" And the little boy says, "My sister and Papa. Kill, 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 kill." And Abraham says, "And what about the rest of the people? What do they say?" And the little boy says, "Kill." They say, Abraham says, "Tell me how they say it." And he begins to sound, there's really no other way to say this. He sounds erotically involved in this. He sounds as though this is turning him on. Every time I think about it, it makes me ill. It's just to even consider this. So the little girl and the boys, they say kill, kill, like cheers. Abraham says, say it how they say it. And the children say, kill, 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 kill. And the little girl says, like that. But then after, when it's my turn to kill the baby, the others and my brothers say kill. Abraham says, and when it's his turn to say it, you say it. And the little girl says, yes. Abraham says, what's that word you say? And the little girl says, kill. And Abraham says, say it more for me. I want to hear it. And the little girl says, kill, 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 kill. She just kind of says it softly. And Abraham says, I like the sound of it. Can you say it together? Say it together. Let's all say it together. And then all together they chant, kill, 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 kill. And then Abraham says, that's what they say. And the little boy says, then really loudly in my ear. So Abraham says, you getting the picture now? You're getting the picture. And the little boy says, they also say, kill the baby, kill the baby. And Ella says, it's incredible. Well, yes, if by incredible you mean unbelievable, by which we mean completely irresponsibly deranged, yes, then it is incredible. So Abraham says, what do they say? And the little boy says, kill the baby, kill the baby, kill the baby, kill the baby. And Abraham says, let's say it together, let's say it together. And then all of them begin chanting, kill the baby, kill the baby, kill the baby, kill the baby. And Abraham says, thank you. And the little boy says, like that. It's something that you cannot unhear. And if you've listened to this and still believe that those children were not coached, led, and pushed into saying what they said, then I'm not sure what else we can say. This brings us almost to the end of the Jean-Clement video. Eventually they kind of managed to get out the door. There are a few smaller discussions on the way out. And as they leave, Abraham says something that I think is kind of telling. He makes it quite clear that he's tired and says, some of us have been working on this for a month full time. Some of us haven't slept for a month. Which kind of sounds like, he's so excited about what he thinks he's finding that he has really been working hard to force these children to say all of this stuff. It's an interesting thing because he is completely self-obsessed. He thinks it's 1:30 in the morning and he doesn't say, oh, the children must be tired, we should take them home, they've had a long day. No. It's, I'm tired, I haven't slept for a month. And it's all about him. Not even Ella. I mean, he doesn't even think about Ella. At the very end of the Jean-Clement video, he left the audio recording while he phoned the police to inform them that Abraham and Ella had brought the children there and that he was very concerned about what he'd heard. It seems likely at the beginning of the conversation with police that he actually believes that there was a whole bunch of Satanists practicing in Hampstead, and all of that everything that he had been told was true. But whether he believed it or not, the fact remains that he did bring it to the attention of the police, and the police became involved. They went to visit Abraham and Ella the next evening. at about 5 p.m., I believe. And when they showed up at the door, Ella needed a great deal of coaxing to for her to let them in. She was really very unhappy that they were there, and it was, it went on from there. That was when the police first contacted the children and did the first ABE interview, and then things began to move. The police investigation began there. We'll talk a little bit more about that another time, but for now, thanks very much for listening, and I strongly recommend that if you possibly can, take a look at the whole Jean-Clement audio transcription. You'll find it at hoaxteadresearch.wordpress.com. That's our blog, and you'll find that, and if you have any questions about it, I'm happy to try and answer as much as I can, keeping in mind that we won't know the whole story on this thing until those responsible for it have been arrested and put on trial. I really think that that's the only way we're going to find out exactly what happened all the way through. We only have certain pieces of evidence to go on, and this is a big one. So thanks very much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye now.